Peace and welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Folks, we got a lot to talk about. First, let's talk about that outage that happened with Meta. Facebook, Instagram, Threads all went down for a little bit earlier today. We'll talk and give you the latest around that situation. Also, did the Supreme Court make it harder to remove candidates who might be considered insurrectionists? We'll have that conversation as well as we look at that historic Supreme Court ruling that helped to put Donald Trump back onto the ballots of some states. Later on, we're going to talk about Super Tuesday. It is the day 15 states around the country are going to the polls. And what does the outcome look like for Super Tuesday? We'll have that conversation. And later on, Black and Latino voters are backing or calling for the backing of anti-war Democrats. Wow, there's a lot of disruption in the Democratic Party. We'll see how far it goes. And we're going to be checking in with my sister, Noemi Luan Perez, to give us the latest on that. So stay with us. It's all happening on today's edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Let's go. All right, folks, welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation, especially on this great day. It is Tuesday, March 5th, folks. It is officially, quote unquote, Super Tuesday, where a number of states are going to the polls today for the primary elections. We're going to talk about it. We're actually streaming that on the other part of the network where we're having Super Tuesday primary elections and caucuses that are streaming right now. So folks are over there checking out the show here and back and forth. It's all good. It's all one network, but we are doing our part here on Black Star Network to keep you informed about all of those big races, the smaller races, and where Black voters are standing on this day. Now, we're streaming live. Gotta let you know, we're streaming live on a number of different platforms. You can definitely check us out on our home platform of blackstarnetwork.com. Go to our website today, download the app for free, and follow us on social media under Black Star Network. And we ask you to drop a little something in the bucket, because unlike today, folks, unlike any other day, today is the day that Black Star Network becomes pivotal in a conversation. We are definitely talking about the issues that are affecting Black Americans. And folks, we want you to be an investor and stakeholder in those discussions. So make sure you go to our website today. And we thank you so much for your support and your donations. Now, we're also streaming live on Amazon platforms. You can check us out on Amazon News or your Fire TV. We're also on Amazon Prime Video. So make sure you find us on the Prime Video app under Live TV and News, or find us on Amazon.com under Prime Video. We're also on the Freevee Network. You can find us under On Now on News for Black Star Network. And we're on Plex TV 24/7. You could just search for Black Star Network or find us under Live TV, the news and opinions. Yes, yes, yes. Y'all see me, right? I'm rocking my vintage Black Voters Matter shirt today, because that's what it's all about. If you haven't had a chance to go to the polls today, make sure you do so. If you feeling what you have, and I'm talking about not just beyond the presidential election, many of us know that those down ballots, those down ballot contests, smaller offices, those things are happening. And so we want you to get fully immersed in this situation, right? You got to show up in the polls. We got to show up in the polls to make some differences. Again, it's not just about the presidential election. We got some statewide elections, some local elections that are happening around the country. Those are the elections that truly, truly matter. So Black voters matter today. And a big shout out to all of those who are on the ground with the Black Voters Matter coalition. Man, they're doing fantastic work. Y'all know that they're going to be out and about today, especially trying to get as many of our people to the polls, and more importantly, getting us politically educated. Because so many of you crew are talking about being politically educated, becoming more informed and knowledgeable about the process. It's all very important. So big shout out to all the Black voters today who are doing their part for their civic participation. Now, big shout out to my online culture crew. I see y'all. checking into the chat, and I'm so happy y'all are joining me today. Big shout out to if you are joining the crew on the Facebook side. Thank you so much and welcome to the chat. If you're joining the crew on the X platform, welcome to the chat. And if you're joining the crew on YouTube chat on Big Brother Roland Martin's YouTube page, and as well as Big Brother Roland Martin's Facebook page, we truly appreciate y'all. Big shout out to my brother, Pastor David Blissett. I see you in the chat. You don't like my music. I see you in the chat. Who else we got in here? We got Smooth Approach. I see you. Deidre Hall. I see you. Willie Frazier, Big Brother Willie. I see you. You don't like my music? I got you. Grown folks perspective. Black people. I hear you. Thank you so much. Grown folks perspective. Official Sneak. I see you. Monkey Confession. SCOTUS Adventures. Thank you for checking in. CC Knight, Deborah Lady, how you feeling? Thank you for joining us. Cindy D, I see you. Anastasia Paget, I see you. Nigel Kennan, thank you so much for checking in. Man, oh man, so many of y'all are checking in. It's good to connect with y'all once again as we have these conversations. All right, let me start it off here before we take our first pause. Let's talk about what happened earlier. How many of you experienced a little something on your social media on Facebook and Instagram? I did this morning. I woke up this morning. And I was like, wait a minute, damn, I know I paid the bill. We paid the bill. I know that's been done. But it was found out that there was a widespread outage of both Facebook, Instagram, Threads, essentially under the Meta company platforms. All of their platforms went down. And you know, folks, when stuff like this happens, depending on who you are and your level of engagement with Facebook, Instagram, and Threads, this could mean a lot of like panicking and uncertainty. So, we looked at the situation here and just say, okay, what's really going on? Let me just say, they have not determined as of yet what the source of the problem is. They have not determined that. But according to some of the latest reports, take a look at this. This is coming from CBS News. It says that Meta says its Facebook and Instagram services have been restored after more than 500,000 users reported widespread issues earlier today, with many saying they were booted out of the social media platforms and unable to log back in. Now, according to Down Detector, which is a site that monitors internet service outages, on Tuesday said it received more than 500,000 reports of problems by US Facebook users and more than 70,000 reported problems with Instagram as of about 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. The most frequently reported problems were with logging into the Facebook app and issues with the Instagram app, according to Down Detector. Yeah, that's exactly what I experienced on my side of things, and y'all may experience the same thing. But here's the thing, folks, and y'all can post your comments and share your thoughts and let me know what y'all experience. Even if you some of you still might be out. I don't know. But how many of y'all are feeling a little vulnerable right now in terms of our interactions with technology and communications? Now, just a couple of days ago, we had that AT&T outage. That was, I think it was lasted about 10 hours or something like that. Some people couldn't send messages and, get online and all of that stuff. So that happened. Now this is happening. Y'all remember back in 2021, Facebook had another outage, a much more severe outage. It was about 6 hours long that people couldn't log into Facebook and get on certain social media platforms. And man, people were panicking. People were panicking. But here's the real thing that I kind of gleaned from this moment was that now we even have our network on these platforms, and of course, anything can happen. Anything can happen. Like, we really don't have as much control of these platforms as we like to believe or like to tell ourselves, right? And this is not anything new to Meta, especially, who has always been under great scrutiny for not being the most secure networks, making sure that there isn't a lot of, a lot of data mining issues and whatnot. So this is not new. Breaching of security is not new, but we're starting to see it more and more and more, folks, more frequently. That's the thing, more frequently. And that's the concern that I have, especially as we put out so much information, not just here on this network, but I'm just saying, think about it, personal information that we have put out there, information. And when you get hacked, I've been hacked before. I've been hacked on my Instagram page. And when you get hacked and you got to look at the number of followers, when you get hacked, you pretty much got to throw away that whole account if you want to be safe, I think. But then if you got to rebuild the account, now you got to start rebuilding the account. What about the fact that there are some places, especially if you work in content creation, if you're doing communications work, people look at that metric of how many followers and how many people come and check out your page, how engaged are you? Like this stuff it can be here today and gone tomorrow. And so it kind of brings you into a sense of mortality, for lack of a better word, digital mortality. I'm gonna make up a new word here. Digital mortality about our livelihoods and how we interact online. Look, I gotta take my first pause. When we come forward, I'd like to get your thoughts on this, just real quick. What did you make of it? How do you feel about technology and security and breaches of security, especially those of you who work in IT or tech fields? Share your thoughts and let's talk a little bit more about this. Stay with us, folks. We're just getting started here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for a Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us.
We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind $100,000, so we want to hit that. Your money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
An angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol.
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
There's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
All right, folks, welcome back to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Yo, while y'all on, while we talking about social media, make sure y'all follow me and Big Brother Roland Martin. You can follow me at The Real Farajii or Instagram at Farajii on the X platform. Just follow us, continue to follow Big Brother Roland Martin. Find him on all social media platforms at Roland S. Martin, as well as Black Star Network. And let's continue to build the community. Let's continue to build the conversations up. And I truly appreciate y'all for checking in. Now, we're talking about Meta, how they had this major outage of Facebook, Instagram, Threads. The platforms went down just for a little bit today. And it once again reminded us of our digital mortality, folks, that this thing is man-made. It will continue to go through ups and downs. Y'all remember the last time that Facebook went down, it was down for a few hours and people felt like something was missing in their lives, right? Like people really started panicking around the whole thing. But it just goes to show that there is a sense of mortality, that this thing is not, a system that is, that is never going to be made vulnerable. Like this is a real system that can fall and break and that can be breached. As much as these tech companies may say that these are secure systems, a lot of our data, personal information, social security information, all of this stuff is up for grabs, folks. And when we look at how advanced technology has gotten in this country, but at the same time, how much more open and vulnerable our information is, it puts us into this kind of dilemma of whether we want to get more technology or have more privacy and independence. Now, you don't like my music, you checked in, and I appreciate you, man. Thank you for checking in. You said something that I thought was very, very interesting, which is you said technology is a Faustian bargain. We trade independence and freedom for convenience and entertainment. Ouch. I love that. And for those who aren't familiar with that terminology, a Faustian bargain, that is when a person exchanges something of supreme moral value for a material benefit. So based on what you don't like my music, what you were saying, I think you're right on that we give up things like privacy, a sense of independence. We give up agency over the information that we want to expose ourselves to, right? We give these things up to be, as you said, to be entertained, right? To feel like, oh, if I give up these things, I could be part, I'm gaining something more. And even though the Faustian bargain idea is talking about material benefit, the benefit of the validation, the benefit of being exposed to all of these, to more people, the benefit of being, of being exposed and seen, the benefit of being able to make money from these platforms, that's a material benefit. It just opens up the conversation about, the fine line that we are walking between this idea of having more technology, more independence, and all of these things versus, a place that y'all remember those times when we didn't have social media, how life was before then? Seems like eons ago at this point. But I remember those days. I remember growing up, and Facebook wasn't around in the 90s and early 2000s. Like, it just wasn't. Now it's so ingrained into the culture that it like defines us at this point. So that's an excellent point that you made. Like my music. I'm glad that you brought that into the table of this Faustian bargain that we find ourselves in. Gene Smith, you said, Brother Farajii, are you aware that we are systematically removed from Roland Martin platforms? I have to resubscribe to the platforms. I didn't know that, Gene. I didn't know that. But if that's happening, and I couldn't tell you why, right? I couldn't say why. But again, it just goes back to this digital mortality that as much as we want to put so much emphasis in it, and trust me, I get it. But we are working on systems that are very, very vulnerable, very vulnerable. Now, it's one thing that you put out certain content and things like that, but I can only imagine if you are, this is your only source of income and these things keep happening, or somebody hacks you, just like you saying, Gene, like, you got to get logged back in and all of these things. Like after a while, it becomes very jarring and it's disruptive to your quality of life. Isaac, thank you so much, Gene, for posting that. Isaac, you said, I like to think of it as a tool to be used, but I don't want to be used by it. A tool to be used, but you don't want to be used by it. I like that one, Isaac. Thank you so much for checking in. My sister Suzette, what's she saying? My sister Suzette speak. What she say? She said, initially, I thought I was hacked. Me too. I thought I was hacked. I was like, what the hell is going on? Like, I can't, I thought something was wrong with my phone. I restarted the phone like 3 times. Like, I couldn't get it together. But this is why. This is exactly why. But folks, again, as we talk about this, as I close this part of the conversation out, we have to make sure that there are some things in place. We have to look at this for what it is, right? And there are a number of articles, and I found myself just immersed in all of this talk about, what do they call it? They use the term like a techno auto, I can't even get the word out. But it's talking about those who are at the top of these tech companies, like, your Elon Musk and your Mark Zuckerbergs and all of those people, that they have more power than presidents because they create a platform and they help to shape how people see themselves and how people see the world, right? And that is a powerful skill. That's a powerful tool to have. Not to say that these guys are just, in some sort of secret dark room and they coming up with ideas and he's like, oh, we're going to take over the world. But it just goes to show us that these platforms really do have power. And I'm talking about Facebook has billions of users across this country. Across the world. They have millions upon millions of users in this country alone. And we're all kind of subjected to whatever happens to these platforms. And it's a very, it can be an unsettling thought. It can be a disturbing thought. It can be just the fact that this is the latest phase of technology, but it's going to require us to be more intentional. And that's what I get from this, that yes, we can use these platforms. Like you said, Isaac, you don't have to be used, you can use them, but you don't have to be used by it. But it requires us to be intentional. And I can only say, please don't put so much personal information out there. Unless that's what you do, unless you're an open person, but just know that sometimes this stuff will pop up and live on forever. And I would hate for people's lives to get ruined even more because of what they see on these social media platforms. So that's the situation. Again, it has yet to be determined what the source of today's outage was. I'm sure we're going to hear about this in the next few days. But our digital mortality is very, very real. Look, I got to take another quick pause. When we come forward, let's talk about that historic decision by the Supreme Court around former President Donald Trump and him being on the ballots of states. They have made the decision that the states cannot determine to take a presidential candidate off the ballot, but that that power only rests in the hands of Congress. So we will have to have a conversation about that. I'm gonna check in with our sister who was a former council person and social justice advocate to talk to us about this latest step here in this ongoing legal issue and legal battle of the former president. So stay with us. That conversation is up next here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol,
we're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us.
We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. We wanted to have a conversation today to talk about that historic ruling from the Supreme Court around the case of Donald Trump and his presidency being on the ballot for a number of states who have pushed back on this idea of putting the president on the ballot because of the 14th Amendment, Section 3, where these states believe that since Trump was involved in the insurrection with the storming of the Capitol, he should not be on the ballot. Well, this case, it's particularly as it relates to the state of Colorado, was taken all the way to the Supreme Court, and it is that case where the Supreme Court had made the decision that the ruling for these states was not a correct ruling, and based upon the interpretation of the Constitution by the Supreme Court, they said that only Congress can determine whether a candidate should be on the ballot or not. That is not a state decision. Now, we wanted to look at this because, of course, this opens up the pathway for former President Donald Trump to continue to run for president, to continue to be the presumptive nominee for the Republican Party, and particularly opens him up to even become elected as the next president of the United States once again. And of course, people are pushing back on this. But also the bigger question that folks have around this same issue, folks, is whether the Supreme Court has opened up Pandora's box for other individuals like Trump to be removed from the ballot. So I wanted to talk to someone who can give us some insight into this. I'm joined by my sister, Miss Elizabeth Horton-Sheff, who is a former city councilwoman for the city of Hartford, Connecticut, and she is also a social justice advocate as well. Miss Elizabeth, thank you so much, sis, for joining us. How you feeling this afternoon?
I'm blessed, Farajii. I'm blessed. I got up this morning. That's 9/10 of a good day. Is getting up.
I know that's right.
I feel like God get you up, you got another day to do something right.
There it is. Amen. 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 Sister Elizabeth, let's talk a little bit about this particular case. Were you surprised that the Supreme Court ruled in favor of Trump on this particular case? Did that shock you in any way?
Well, let's begin with a basic concept of the power of words. This wasn't an historic ruling. It was a status quo ruling.
Okay.
Because you have a Supreme Court largely appointed by Trump for Trump. So not only from the Supreme Court of our nation, but all the way down to state courts. You have judges that he appointed to carry on his agenda. So it wasn't a historic ruling, it was status quo. So I didn't expect anything different.
Okay.
I knew it was coming. We all should have known it was coming. But let's, when you think about it, I always try to say now, if that was Obama, would there be a different ruling? Of course there would be a different ruling. So I wasn't at all surprised by this ruling. And I think it points to something that is very disconcerting, is the fact that we have people in places of principalities and powers that be that are put there to further the white agenda, and they don't care if they kill democracy as long as they can get what they think they are due. What they don't seem to realize and have never paid attention to is the fact that Donald Trump uses them. He uses all of these people who are supporting him and giving him money and doing it. He uses these people. So, we shouldn't be surprised. We should be alarmed and mobilizing right now for the 2024 election.
Shouldn't be surprised. We should be mobilizing right now.
Right now. Right now. Because and I hear some black folks say, well, Trump did this and he did that. Yeah, okay. And when you vote for him, he will give you your free ticket back to the plantation. You want to go? Go. But we have to understand that America is getting increasingly more colored, right? And this century, we'll see that white folks will be outnumbered. That scares the bejesus out of them, because they want to be in control of everything. And if there's more and more of us, they're finding more and more ways to deny us our full participation in democracy. They don't want to educate our children. That's why my son and I are in a civil rights lawsuit from 1989. This suit is still active in Connecticut, called Sheff versus O'Neill, where we sued the state of Connecticut for unequal educational opportunity, and in support of Brown versus the Board of Topeka. We called for quality integrated education. Over those 34 years, we have magnet schools, choice, VOAG schools, where children are allotted the opportunity to experience a diverse education. Because as long as we remain separated, it's the old adage, divide and conquer. That's what they're doing. So you got to understand, again, I'm going to say, we should not be surprised. We should be mobilizing right now.
You have, and Sister Elizabeth, you've been doing politics. You've been in political space for years. You served as a council person, like you mentioned. You have been an advocate in this landmark case in the state of Connecticut of Sheff of Horton. I'm sorry, let me bring this up. Sheff versus O'Neill, dealing with equal educational opportunities. So we're in a place in this country where we're seeing the rights of Black people are constantly being attacked. And my concern is that when you go to the court, even though we know that justice can go either way for us in our cases, the Supreme Court in particular has always been the quote unquote bastion of justice for a lot of our people, because they feel like, you know what, if the state courts can't hear my grievance, the Supreme Court will. Now with the Supreme Court being in the place that it's in, highly super conservative, much more partisan, what's the recourse that Black folks can take? I mean, you're working on a case that's 35 years in the making, and it still hasn't been resolved. So when people hear this, some of our people might become disillusioned, disenchanted to keep, as John Lewis say, to keep making good trouble. What is the recourse if the court system is in disarray? What's the recourse for us to get justice in this country?
Well, there is no room for tired. If we're talking about supporting our children's future, we cannot afford to get tired, right? My son is like 40 some odd years old. His name is Milo. He has a son named Milo, and his Milo has a son named. That's 3 generations of Milo, and I am still on the battlefield for our children's education, right? We know that the Supreme Court is in his pocket, right? We need to make sure, first off, that Donald Trump does not get reelected. That would give us an opportunity down the road to appoint other judges that would balance the court. We would then look at, hopefully, seeing more democratic and positive, humane outcomes on the court. What we can do at the local level is get involved in local politics. We need to make sure that the people who are representing us on our school board, at our city halls, at our state legislators, those who represent us in Washington, D.C., especially, have our best interest in mind. We need to run for office. You know, we need to put ourselves out there, because sitting home and, you know, streaming whatever you stream ain't going to get us there. We have to be proactive in our future. So, I mean, the Supreme Court, I think, is a lost cause. Clarence Thomas should be run off the face of the earth, not out of town, off the earth. We need to realize that these people are doing Machiavellian. They sit up nights thinking about long-term ways to deny us democracy. So, you know, we got to get better than this. We got to be sharp. I mean, Dr. King and them, you know, Rosa Parks, Sojourner Truth. I mean, all these people, they came before us to plow the field, plow the road for us. And we have let the grass grow over it. We got to do better. I blame us. Because I don't blame the principalities and powers that be. Power does not concede. I blame us for not doing what we should be doing every single day, and that is calling for justice, challenging racism, looking to make sure that people hear our voice. More so, use our voice.
And then you're saying that's on us. That's the burden that
that's on us.
That was on us. That's been on us.
That's been on us. That's been on us. And so I get people get mad at me when I say that, but the bottom line is, if you have a house and you don't keep up repairs, or let's take a car. If you have a car, you don't keep up with oil change, and you don't keep up with maintenance, and you don't buy new tires, and you don't fix the broken lights, what is your car going to look like 10 years down the road?
Yeah.
So, you know, you gotta take care. You gotta take, we have to learn to take care of us. Very simple.
And you know, sis, we got to take another pause, but Sis Elizabeth, I want to get your take on this, because political participation, political engagement is not something, as much as we talk about democracy being the government of the people, for the people, by the people, getting involved is not a value of this culture, of our culture. It's not a value. And I'm saying, and I know some people might be upset at me when I say this, but I'm saying, like, collectively. I'm saying collectively. There's a small number of us who are saying, you know what, we need to do A, B, and C. Yourself, I talk to folks every day on this show. Yeah. I'm one of them that says, oh, we should get involved. We should do something. But as a collective for our people, I think a lot of our people, Sister Elizabeth, are still caught up in this idea that government will work it out, that it will work itself out. All I got to do is go to the ballot box, put somebody in, and then I did my part.
No, you got to put them in and keep them honest. Because I've known a whole lot of folks who get into these positions and start getting stuff that say the honorable so-and-so, and then they start to believe that they are. When they have to realize, but for the grace of God, they could be that homeless person that they so disdain.
Let me just take this quick pause, sis. We're going to take a pause. When we come back, more conversation with our sister, Elizabeth Horton Sheff, as she's a former city councilwoman for the city of Hartford, Connecticut. She's a social justice advocate. She's involved in a longstanding lawsuit against the state of Connecticut, Chef versus O'Neill. Folks, we're just having the conversation about the Supreme Court decision around the Trump case and the impact that it will have on us in democracy. Stay with us. The conversation continues on the other side right here with you. Post your comments as we're streaming live on Big Brother Roland Martin's Facebook page and Brother Roland Martin's YouTube channel. We would love to hear what you got to say. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for a Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us.
We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind $100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in to us here on Super Tuesday. If you haven't had a chance to go out and vote, I'm sure on the East Coast it's about 4 o'clock, 4:01 right now. So polls are still open. So if you haven't had a chance to go out and vote, make sure you do so. 15 states are going to the polls today. And even though this is a primary election, this is an election that still carries great significance, especially for those statewide contests, those local contests. That's when a lot of the stuff happens, folks. That's when a lot of work gets done. That's when laws get made. And so if you haven't had a chance to vote today, do so today. Do so as soon as you can before the polls close in your area. And there are a number of different resources that you can go to if you're not sure where to go or who to see or how to vote and all of those things. You might have moved from one city to the next. There are ways that your vote can still be counted, because at the end of today, we don't want it just to be a situation where it says, oh, Black folks didn't come out and show up. No, we came out, we showed up, not just for the president. This is bigger than a presidential election. We're talking about down ballot elections, and these are the elections that matter the most. So big shout out to all of us for all of those who have gone out, have decided to say, you know what, I'm going to do my part in this way, using civic participation and going out to vote. So again, make sure you understand that Black voters matter. Now, I've been checking in with my sisters. We've been talking about this latest situation, this latest decision by the Supreme Court. I'm been joined by my sister, Elizabeth Horton-Sheff, who is a former city councilwoman for the city of Hartford, Connecticut. She's also a social justice advocate and has been pivotal in filing a landmark lawsuit in the Sheff versus O'Neill lawsuit that stemmed from the lack of equal educational opportunities for all Connecticut children, particularly those residing in urban areas. And it's a very, very important lawsuit, a lawsuit that has been going on for 35 years, folks. So that just goes to show you that when it comes to fighting for the right thing, it's not an overnight situation. It takes a lot of patience, a lot of consistency, a lot of work on the ground. But our sister is still putting up the great fight to make sure that she's fighting for the next generation. Sister Elizabeth, I want to kind of go back to get your thoughts on this, because before the break, I made the mention that it used to be, and it seems like, and I'm not trying to throw shade on any generation, but in our current culture of things, civic participation is not much of a value. And my sister Suzette Speaks, she said, and I couldn't agree with her more. She said it used to be a cultural norm for Black people, Farajii. And Suzette, we know it used to be a cultural norm. Now, I think it's something different. Now, I don't know, and you tell me, Sister Elizabeth, because you've been doing this work much longer. I don't know whether it's because we were making a couple of gains, like the Voting Rights Act. We made some gains in integrating in a lot of different spaces, that the fire kind of diminished over the years. And so that value was simply just dissipated, and it wasn't passed on to the next generation. I don't know. We just got comfortable over the years. I don't know if it's the simple point that Black folks say, you know what, I'm not a part of this country, so I'm going to operate as an independent entity. I'm on my own self. I'm this individual. I'm not connected to anything. I'm not sure what happened, but something happened. And now it's like we got to wake people back up to get involved again. What's your take on that?
Okay, I do have a take on that, but before we move on to that,
yes, ma'am.
I just want to go back to this ruling of the Supreme Court. The piece of this ruling that is the most egregious is that the Supreme Court said that in order for anyone to be deemed unfit to be on a ballot, particularly the presidential ballot,
right?
Congress has to pass that legislation, right? So we know that we cannot depend on Congress for justice, right? Just look at the Gore-Bush scenario, where Gore won the popular vote, but it was Congress that put Bush into office. So what happened to one man, one vote? That's into the electoral college. That's a whole nother conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Are we where we are? Well, I think you already said it, brother. We done got complacent. We got a whole lot of people thinking that, So they got all of the reasons why. That's number one. And number two, I think the Black church is failing us tremendously. You
Wow.
remember that the Black church used to be the cornerstone of our community. What is the Black church saying to us today? How is the Black church bringing us together and helping us understand the peril in which we reside? So I think that folks have got to stop dependent on other people to do what we need to do for ourselves. You can't just opt out of participating. If you opt out of participating, you're opting out of keeping justice on the minds of those who need to know that we seek justice. So you just can't.
So, and that opens up the conversation then, because I agree with you wholeheartedly, Sister Elizabeth. That opens up the conversation then, that if we're in this type of situation, and I'm saying the relationship that Black folks have with the Supreme Court and the relationship that we have with the overall court system in this country, that means now that we see that the courts are moving the way they're moving, we have to be more intentional in redefining what that relationship looks like from this point forward, right?
Exactly.
Like we can't just say, okay, take it to the court system, because I know lawsuits happen all the time, and this is no shade on who I'm about to say. We see it from the National Urban League. We see it from the NAACP with their efforts to bring lawsuits to this court. But it's becoming more and more apparent to me, and I'm a young man, so correct me if I'm wrong. It don't matter if you bring a lawsuit against somebody now. It's just going to be a conversation like, yes, we brought a lawsuit against this person or that person. And I'm not saying that they're not important. I'm just saying, to the perception that our people have and the relationship that we currently are engaged in with these court systems, there's no guarantee that justice is going to be, that we're going to receive justice because of a lawsuit. And that opens up the other question, sis. Do we want to keep taking our grievances to the court just to be seen as human beings, just to get simple rights, the right to vote, the right for our vote to be counted, the right to make sure that we can be protected when we go to the ballot? Like, this is simple stuff that other people have enjoyed. And we got to fight for every small inch. And you've seen it, because you've seen it in your time in public office. We got to keep fighting. We got to fight for this. We got to fight for that. And I'm just wondering, like, is this the best course of action? Because you got another generation that's expecting and that's seeking and that's wanting tangible results. And we can't just say, we can't go to the next generation and say, well, we got a lawsuit pending.
Well, you know what? I'm going to say it one more time. If you don't take care of what you got, you will lose it. And that's where I think we are right now. We have taken for granted all of the gains that were made in the civil rights movement. We've just taken them for granted that it's going to be all right. No, it's not going to be all right, because justice costs. Freedom, as they say, is not free. So we need to retrain our minds to understand that we may always keep fighting. That's, that's what social advocacy is. It's the continuous pursuit of justice. And so, if I had a magic wand, sure, I'd wave it, and everybody would be singing Kumbaya, and everybody would see butterflies and unicorns and, rainbows, but that ain't gonna happen. So we need to know that in order for us to maintain ground, In game ground, we have to be on the battlefield. I mean, look at Roe versus Wade.
Right.
I mean, who would have thought that the Supreme Court would have reversed Roe versus Wade? So if they're going to reverse Roe versus Wade, and you get Carrot Top back in there, right? What else are they going to erode? So let's not be. I mean, we are in critical times, and we need to understand that we need every heart, every soul, every hand, every foot available to stand up for the future of our children. You know, I mean, we're talking about generations ago. Someone stood up for us.
Right.
For whom do you stand?
Right. I got to take another pause, but Sister Elizabeth, when we come back, I want to get your take on where the Supreme Court stands as we ask this question. Did the Supreme Court make it harder to remove candidates? Because as much as this was a unanimous ruling of 9-0, the three liberal justices, Sonia Sotomayor, Elena Kagan, and Ketanji Brown Jackson, wrote on their separate opinions some words that I think are words of warning for this country and for the this idea of protecting oath-breaking insurrectionists. Yeah. And I want to get your take on that. Folks, we're going to continue the conversation on the other side. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us.
We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Your money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad, joined by my sister Elizabeth Wharton-Sheff, as we're talking about the Supreme Court decision around the case of former President Donald Trump. Sister Elizabeth, I wanted to get your take on this as we have this very important conversation about the state of the court and our relationship with the court. Let's put up quote 2 from this report from NBC News as we talk about this particular Supreme Court case. Let's put up quote 2, please. And in this quote, take a look at what NBC said. It says, in ruling for, let's go to the next quote. In ruling for Trump, there you go, thank you. In ruling for Trump, the U.S. Supreme Court specified that anything Congress does must be specifically tailored to address Section 3, an implicit warning that broad legislation could be struck down. Now, according to the liberal justices in their separate opinion, they said, quote, today the majority goes beyond the necessities of this case to limit how Section 3 can bar an oath-breaking insurrectionist from becoming president. This is from liberal justices Sonia Sotomayor, Elena Kagan, and Ketanji Brown Jackson. By weighing in on the role of Congress, the majority attempts to insulate all alleged insurrectionists from future challenges to their holding federal office, they added. One sentence in particular attracted the attention of legal experts, with the liberal justice writing that the majority was seemingly ruling out enforcement under general federal statutes requiring the government comply with the law. And essentially what they're saying, Sister Elizabeth, to break this down for some folks, that by this decision being made, that if a person showed up, was on the Capitol on January the 6th, and they decided to run for Senate or run for the House of Representatives, they could still be on the ballot.
You know,
and unless Congress goes through the deep work of trying to figure out who this person is, and I mean, this is the state, so states don't have no rights in this conversation. No. It comes up to Congress, which is insane, Sister Elizabeth, because it means that anybody can run.
Yeah, and you recall that he who shall not be named said that he could shoot somebody in the middle of the street and still be president. He said that. So why are we making pretend like this is something new? In the dissenting opinion of the three justices, Sotomayor, Kagan, and Brown Jackson, they made note that this is an egregious overstep of the Supreme Court, an egregious overstep. You know, and again, okay, if something like this ever goes to Congress, it will greatly depend, the outcome will greatly depend on who controls Congress.
Right?
So right now, the Republicans control the House, right?
Right.
So, I mean, and I believe it's the House that would make that the same decision that they made when they pushed Bush into the White House over the common vote, the favorite vote of the people. So, I mean, going back to square one, folks, we need to engage in every level of the political process, right? And like you said, it is not going to be tomorrow. You know, it might be 30, 40, 50 tomorrows. But if we do not engage, we will continue to lose rights. And so what are you going to tell your 3-year-old daughter that you did to preserve her freedom, to preserve her right to life, to preserve her ability to get an education, to get a good job, to take care of her husband and family? I mean, what are you going to say? Oh, I was busy. What? How do you, what? No, we have to, as I said, we need to start mobilizing right now. We should have been mobilizing low these many decades, but you know, we got a little comfortable. It's time to get uncomfortable, because if we don't do something now, the balance will tip against us, and we will all be in trouble. Not just us on this planet right now, but future generations to come. So, you know, what you gonna do?
And that is the dilemma that we're facing, sis. That's the dilemma we're facing. Tiana checked in, great culture crew member. Tiana, you said they just pissed on states' rights.
Yeah.
Yes. Let me see. Isaacs, you said it's my understanding Arizona has already blocked candidates found to have participated in the insurrection. I don't remember the details, but there is precedent at a state level. But that's going to be the end of that train.
That's
Right.
done. That's done. That's done.
That is done. Cindy D, you say we have to vote as never before. Democracy or fascism, we get to decide.
Yes.
This is wild. Brian Christian, my brother, you said building is hard work, but maintaining and working together is even harder, but we can do it. After all, we did build the world. It is going to be hard work. But I think to Brother Brian's point, Sister Elizabeth, it's going to require us as Black folks in this country, it's going to require us to ask ourselves this question: what type of citizen do you want to be? Because as you've been laying it out for us, you talked about your personal experience with your case. The fact is, we have to, and I think this is going to be the hardest part. And this is not just facing Black folks. This is facing white people and everybody in this country. We all see the breakdown. We all see that this country is in a crisis point, right? But then we all have to make a decision whether you're going to sit on the sidelines and just watch, or you're going to get in the game.
Right. I mean, okay, I like to stream Netflix and Hulu just as much as anybody else. I like to look at stuff, right? But you know, first things first, folks. We are facing some serious concerns here. So now is not the time to say, you know, the little red hen thing. I don't know if you know, you might be too young. The story of the little red hen, nobody wanted to help her do plant the weed or harvest the weed or make the bread, but everybody wanted the slice when it was done, right? No.
Right.
You know, is this not little red hen time? This is some serious stuff. And if we do not engage, then I don't worry about me. I don't worry about me. I live a couple. I am blessed. I'm worried about veterans who are suffering from mental illness. They fight these wars. They come home, can't get a job. Right? We can talk about historical disparities between white and Black veterans, but let's just talk about it in general. Let's talk about the families who can't afford rent and are sleeping in cars with their children, who can't afford food.
That's right.
Let's talk about these things are happening. But let's talk about the people in Michigan that don't have clean water. Let's talk about these things are real. Let's talk about global warming and the catastrophe of climate change on our weather patterns. Let's talk about the fact that this is not going to get better without bold participation from the American people. Like you say, of all races, color, creeds, socioeconomic status, whether you speak English or you don't speak English. We got to be in this together, because if not, you know, we will all die together. Let's just be serious.
And you know what? I find it to be very interesting that when I talk to people and they say, well, you know, I'm not worried about this, I'm worried about that, and not understanding, Sister Elizabeth, that all of these things are connected, are interconnected, right?
Yes.
You can't talk about having a strong economy if people are afraid of the future, if people are uncertain about what tomorrow's going to look like. You can't say, well, we'll just, you can't just a la carte the issues.
No, you can't.
Because everything connected, just like all of us, right?
Yep.
We're all connected in some way, shape, or form. TC Cook said this, and I want to get your take, and we got about 30 seconds. TC said, we got to stop being selfish. We should be thinking about the next generation like our ancestors did. If you really care about your children, then you should fight for them like ancestors fight for us.
Exactly.
What is your recommendation? You got your son involved in this lawsuit. He got his son involved in this lawsuit. How do we make sure that the fight doesn't just die with one person, but it continues for generation after generation?
We have to tell our story. We have to make sure people understand that we have a long history of civil rights advocacy. We have to tell that story and carry on the conversation. And to that, I offer your audience, if they want to carry on this conversation with me, they can send an email to pickinabone@gmail.com, PICKINABONE, pickinabone@gmail, because we need to continue this conversation. We need to broaden our audience to make sure that everybody's talking about it, not little pockets, everybody.
There it is. There it is. My sister Elizabeth Horton Chef, Sister Elizabeth, it has been an honor, a privilege, and a pleasure to have you joining me today to have this conversation and providing your insight and analysis. And I truly, truly thank you. And I look forward to bringing you back on, especially after we see how the votes land today and moving forward over these next couple of months. It's going to be essential that we do keep these conversations going moving forward. My sister, thank you so much for joining me here on The Culture today.
Yep. Well, I bid you all out there continued strength. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome, sis. Thank you. Folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's have another conversation. Let's talk about how some Black and Latino voters are advocating people to go to polls, but to only back anti-war Democrats. I'm going to share with you the latest phenomenon that's happening within the Democratic Party. Going to be checking in with my sister Noemi Lawan Perez, who is a political strategist, to give us the latest on that. Stay with us. That conversation is up next here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol,
we're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate Black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us.
We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. Just had a fantastic conversation with my sister Elizabeth Horton-Sheff, as we talk about that Supreme Court decisions that she said we should not be surprised happen. So it opens the pathway for former President Donald Trump to keep running for office. And as a result of that, we're seeing more and more folks are becoming more and more disgruntled and agitated with this process, especially on the Democratic side. Now, we've talked about what Arab Americans have been doing in the state of Michigan and how that played out in last week's primary for the state, as they called for folks to vote uncommitted. Now, on Super Tuesday, it looks like Latinos and some Black voters are coming together under the Democratic umbrella and calling for there to be a support of anti-war Democrats. This is happening here in the city of Los Angeles and around the state of California, especially. And I wanted to bring my sister in, who is a chief political strategist, and she's president of Eco Diversity, my sister Noemi Luan Perez, to talk to us a little bit about this coalition that's building among this idea of anti-war that's happening with Blacks and Latinos who are standing in solidarity with the Palestinians. Sister Noemi, thank you so much for joining us once again. How are you this afternoon?
I'm well, and as always, Brother Farajii, happy to be here with you. Always doing a phenomenal job, and you're a conservationist, so I have to keep encouraging you to talk about green stuff. But yes, let's talk about this.
Let's talk about this, absolutely. I came across this piece since seeing that there is a growing sentiment within the Democratic Party. We're going to stay on this Democratic Party, that there are some progressives that are pushing the party to take more of a hardcore anti-war stance as it relates to the conflict in Gaza, and more importantly, to be a party of peace. We're seeing here in Los Angeles, let's put up the first quote of Mr. Eduardo Lalo Vargas, who is a public high school teacher who is running for the LA City Council in District 14. He says that, quote, our liberation is intertwined with the liberation of Palestine. and he is trying to serve as LA City Council member, where 62% of the residents in his district speak Spanish. Now, Vargas also said he will not support President Biden for a second term because of his administration's refusal to call for a permanent ceasefire in Gaza. Instead, he encouraged the crowd to vote for anti-war candidates. Now, some people would say, Sister Noemi, that this situation in Gaza is it is a problem, but in the bigger picture of things, you got to keep Biden in office because of all of the other things that he has done for Black folks, for Latinos, and all of these other things, which is fine. But I think it's interesting that now there's even a differentiation between pro-peace candidates, anti-war candidates, and those who don't take a hard line stance on that. So what do you make of this call right within the Democratic Party? Is this going to open up the conversation, open up the door for Democrats to lose in November?
In a nutshell, it absolutely can. And for context, for all the listeners, the Palestinian Gaza point has actually been something that has been worked on for over 2 years now, thanks to organizations like the Family Working Party that is based and headquartered out of New York. In fact, a lot of the progressives, right, that are in office right now, serving in Congress, are from where? They're from New York. So a lot of that has been work in progress. Now, what is happening right now in Gaza between Israel and Palestine is horrendous and is unlike what previously existed in the past 2 years. And no one, I certainly didn't expect to see any of it. I didn't expect to see any of the coverage that I saw this past weekend, where reportedly several hundreds of Palestinians were killed, right, trying to obtain food from food aid trucks. What I will say is this, to your point, right? Yes, the White House has received the message. Yes, President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris have actually become vocal about calling for the ceasefire, right? So if that's what the coalition wanted, it's getting it, right? But is that it? And to your point, have you affected who we bring into office, right? So on a policy front, and let me say this, and I'm sorry, I get excited and I start using my finger. That's the South LA in me.
It's all good.
Besides calling for a ceasefire, these coalition members really should be calling for the U.S. not to fund, Israeli weapons of war. That's really where the big issue is, right? So yes, the U.S. has called for a ceasefire, At the same time, though, Congress has approved funding to continue the support around the Gaza-Israel issue, So balance that, And yes, the United States is sending out food and aid, right? Yet, again, the policy in terms of reaching out to Congress members and saying, do not fund this, that is where the attack should have been, In terms of the political front, asking coalition members to not, and Black and brown voices in particular, who are already disenfranchised in the voting process, to basically vote neutral or not vote at all, what you're doing is giving the Republican and Trump administration a heads up towards the November elections. That is not necessarily smart, Party people in the place to be. President Trump was very pro-Israel when he served as president. Shall we pull up the policies that he instated during his tenure? So if Biden loses or if Democrats lose, having Republicans in office is not going to help the situation any better. Lastly, hear me on this. Absolutely, the moral compass of calling a ceasefire and addressing war is something that we all should have in our being, regardless of what our religious background. But where is how are we addressing wars that are happening in the continent of Africa right now? Somalia. Have that same energy for Somalia and some other issues that are happening in Africa, in other parts of the world. So I do raise issue with some of the goals and outcomes that this coalition process is working on. I support the whole piece of pushing back against war and against death, right? And genocide, absolutely. But we got to be more strategic on this. It can't just be, vote for either vote neutral or vote for people who only support this issue. We have other issues in the U.S. We forgot about reparations as an issue in the U.S., did we not? We forgot about student loans on this. We still have jobs to deal with. So Palestine alone is not the only issue we need to focus on. And that is my concern, Brother Farajii.
That's a great concern, and I appreciate you for saying it. We're going to take a quick pause, but I want to kind of get your take on this because you worked in the Obama administration as one of the strategists, the chief, one of the major political strategists in bridging the gap between Latinos and Black folks, and really, paving a path for our union. But I think, to your point, Sister Noemi, that a lot of people, and I'm saying young folks, are trying to figure out what the future of this country will be, right? And I've said it before. President Biden, out of the two candidates, we have more of a chance to get further along with Biden than we do with Trump. We already know that. But it will require us to put a little heat under Biden and his administration to say, Mr. President, now, you have the quote unquote moral authority, a little bit more moral authority on the situation than your Republican counterpart. But that doesn't exclude you from the responsibility to hear us, to see us, to listen to us, right? Because if we get into another, if we give you another 4 years, then we're going to expect, we need some assurance that you guys, that you really understand, like, this is what's at stake here. This is what's at stake. So we're going to talk a little bit more about this. Crew, I want to get your take on this as we're talking about some Black and Latino voters are calling on backing anti-war Democrats. What's your take on that? Where do you stand on that? Post your comments as we are streaming right now on Big Brother Roland Martin's Facebook page and Roland Martin's YouTube chat. And stay with us. The conversation continues on the other side with you, Sister Noemi, and right here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate Black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us.
We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Your money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is roland@rolandsmartin.com.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. I'm joined by my sister Noemi Lawan Perez, who is the Chief Political Strategist and President of Eco Diversity Communications, and talking about this latest trend that we're seeing. Some Black and Latino voters are calling for the backing of anti-war Democrats, especially around this issue of the Gaza conflict, and how some Latinos within the party, the Democratic Party, saying that they're going to not support President Biden for a second term because of his administration's refusal to call for a permanent ceasefire. Let me just share with you, Sister Noemi, what another Latino leader said within the party. Take a look at this. Here's the latest. Let's post quote number 2, please, Lise. At the polls, according to this report, at the polls, Biden represents a fundamental, quote unquote, misalignment within the Democratic Party over Gaza that could hurt establishment candidates this year, said Joseph Gervasi, who is the executive director of Our Revolution, a progressive political action group that has endorsed Representative Barbara Lee. He said, what we're seeing is the emergence of a powerful pro-peace voting bloc in 2024 on the Democratic side, referring to the more than 100,000 uncommitted voters cast last week in the Michigan presidential primary. Sister Noemi, I want to kind of get your take on that in terms of this growing voting bloc within the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party has always been known as the Big Tent Party. You got all these different people, you got all these different interests. By you doing the work that you did with the Obama administration, how does a party meet the interests and speak to the needs of all of these different groups of people while still keeping their eyes on keeping power in the House, the Senate, and in the president's office?
So love Our Revolution and Working People's Party, right? Again, I'm going to come back and say, but love y'all, but where are you on reparations, right? Jobs, loan forbearance, all these other issues that also exist. It's almost as if, right, the issue has become, we want this and only this for Black and brown people, right? Above and everything else. I need you and I need them, right, to pull that in as part of the bigger pie. It's not an either or, okay? So, you know, and I certainly cannot espouse dominion, right, over African-American voters. Come on now. We're still dealing with voter disenfranchisement issues, right, which came out of the whole civil rights movement, very specifically around Black, anti-Blackness, African-American voters, okay, and disenfranchising that particular population. So again, it can't be one versus everything else. Really, what you're trying to do is then replace our historical issues as Black and brown people for something that's happening in Palestine. Can we include that as part of our overall issues, right? It can't be an either or situation. Secondly, and let's remind ourselves of what happened during the Trump administration. During the Trump administration, unless people forgot, the president actually issued an executive order banning diversity, equity, and inclusion, which meant that everything that Florida has done, right, he actually did at the federal level. So all of a sudden we forgot about that, right? Because we're only focused on this one issue. So this approach of being single focused, single-minded is, you know, it disregards everything our communities have worked on in our country. Again, the whole reparations issue, it's almost like disappeared, right? And this is something that African Americans have been working on for several hundred years. It's not recent. Okay?
No, it's not recent.
It shouldn't disappear over the Palestine issue. Yes, addressing the Palestine issue is important. Yes, calling out genocide is important. Okay. Yes, calling out the funding. See, we're still not hearing the funding issue even coming out from these coalitions, right? Calling out the funding to fund war in Israel has not been addressed. So, you know, it's that piece of like, let's be strategic. Okay. It's the piece of like, let's figure out who is actually funding or sort of the push at the end of our revolution and some of the other progressive organizations, right? Is it a Democratic issue, or is it Republicans trying to dismantle and create this organization within the Democratic Party? We haven't even talked about that. Okay, that is an issue of itself. However, to your point, Brother Farajii, it is difficult trying to sort of balance out all of the different issues that the Democratic Party has. Different communities, different belief systems, right? LGBT issues are not necessarily everybody else's issues. Okay, you know, diversion issues, immigration issues are not necessarily everybody else's issues. But we're not a single issue party. And so trying to force it to become a single issue party is part of the issue.
I like that. Trying to force it to become a single issue party is part of the issue. So, you know, how is this? So for all of those groups that are advocating for their issue to be addressed, what does the party say to those people? What does the party say to Black Americans who are some Black folks, young Black folks? You have a contingency of young Black folks who are coming into the party, very progressive, want to see more pro-peace efforts being done and advocated by the party. Then you have older Black folks and older Latino folks that are in the party. You know what I'm saying? So how does the party respond to this, Sister Noemi? Or should respond?
It's difficult. And let's talk about the state of Michigan, right? Which is where a lot of that movement is based. Well, the state of Michigan is also, let's look at Detroit. Guess what that is historically? Those are historically African-American power bases that have now shifted, right, because of demographic changes to non-African-American and very specifically Muslim communities. So there is also that issue within those cities, right, of the historic African-American, older African-American power base versus the new demographic change that is basically saying, no, we're not going to vote pro-Democrat or you know, pro anything else. It is an issue that is also, to my point, it is an issue that is also affecting us people, right? There is something called the Congressional Black Caucus in Congress, as well as Congressional Hispanic Caucus, right? I don't hear how these coalitions are talking to these respective caucuses. That's
great,
right?
Point.
Which are basically where our leaders are. So again, I have to ask, these are our leaders. I have to ask, who is funding you? Who is pushing you to basically cause this type of chaos within our respective communities, right? Because it's not helping us. It's not helping our leaders. I will say this, and I do, right, hear me. I reside in the state of California, and this is an example, right? We do have Congresswoman Barbara Lee, love her. She's out in the Bay Area. She's running for U.S. Senate to replace the position that U.S. Feinstein left when she passed. She is the only candidate running on a ceasefire campaign. We hear her talk about that. We don't hear her talk about how she's going to represent California on policy issues. What does that mean, Brother Farajii? How is that affecting her chances of being elected to that position? So again, these are not strategic in scope, right? We are going to affect our own representation in Congress, and we can't allow that.
And you know what? It's so interesting now, Sister Noemi, because I remember years ago where the reparations issue was the taboo issue, right? Like you couldn't talk. I mean, we all knew about Representative John Conyers, the late John Conyers, and him putting forth, he put that piece of legislation, HR 40, to Congress in the late 80s, going into the early 90s. But there was no talk of reparations. Now reparations is much more of a mainstream issue, right? It's a mainstream conversation that we're seeing it. And now Palestinian, the latest chapter of this conflict has become like the new taboo, like it becomes the new litmus test. And for a lot of our people, where we're just like still getting our feet wet or still getting acclimated to all of the political dynamics, the changing political dynamics, what would you say to the Black and Latino voter who's going out today to cast their ballot? Like, how should they see all of these changes politically and making sure that they are on a path to kind of push things forward and not be a single issue voter?
I would say vote for us. Vote for us. That means our candidates, African American or Latinos that are running for office, vote for us. Your decision to not vote for us or to remain neutral is actually a vote against us. It's not helping our community in the long run and overall. You still have to vote for us, okay? So that once they are in office or still maintain their positions in office, they can be a voice of resistance on funding, right? In Gaza and the war in Gaza. But we still have to be in office. When you stop voting, you create a void for us to have representation in office. Okay? Again, we are not a one-issue community. None of us are. There are issues, okay? Farajii, let's be honest. Let's level set here, right? There are issues that fall within the Latino community that are not of interest to African Americans and vice versa. But guess what? We still have to have our representatives in office. So killing us or deciding not to vote for us doesn't benefit us at all. So be more strategic, brothers and sisters, right? On pushing the anti-war funding, right? Be more strategic on keep pulling that in as piece of the puzzle. Be more observant of efforts that try to replace our issues with that one issue. We still have work to do.
We have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of work to do. This Democratic Party is changing. And my hope is, as we close out, my hope is, Sister Noemi, that this president understands what's really at stake. Do you feel like his administration gets it?
I absolutely do. I will share, I love listening to Senator Bernie Sanders. Okay. Massachusetts, totally different state, Jewish man at that. And he actually talks about the hypocrisy on these policies that fund war, right? Whilst, also giving the PR element. And it's about that accountability piece. Yes, we do need to hold the party accountable. Yes, we do need to hold this president accountable. Yes, we need to hold this White House accountable, right? But we don't throw ourselves, or the saying, you don't throw the baby out with the water. I forget what the bath water. But the saying is, we can't do that approach, right? The work that we have to do is still work that needs to be done. I'll speak as again as a Latina. Trump was very open about being anti-Mexican, right? and anti-Latino. He was in Puerto Rico tossing, rolls of paper to Puerto Ricans. Didn't fund the response to the hurricane that occurred in Puerto Rico. So in no shape or form is having that respective individual back in office of importance or benefit to Latinos, and in fact, African Americans. Okay. You just finished talking about the Supreme Court issue and how that decision came along. Listen, this next president has the capability of appointing 2 or 3 other Supreme Court justices. And there are justices that have indicated that if Trump is reelected, they will actually self-nominate to have him to retire so that he can appoint new people. This is work that is not just in the immediate here and now, but work towards 50 years from now. And
That's
so
right.
again, strategically, we can't just function in the here and now. We're talking about work and laying out the foundation for the results 50 years from now. Be more strategic. Talk to us, folk, the congressional leaders that are in office, Congressional Black Caucus, Congressional Hispanic Caucus. If they're not part of the equation, something's wrong here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's a great point. We're going to have to explore that even more, because I would like to hear more from the Congressional Hispanic Caucus and the CHC and the CBC. We talked the last time about how they're not on the same page on some issues. And I don't get it. And I'm like, y'all like working, but y'all not working together. So, that has to be explored. But to your point, single issues, if we get caught up on the single issues, then essentially we're going to find ourselves getting just caught up just because this is bigger than one particular issue. And I think that is a hard pill to swallow, Sister Noemi, just because we're so passionate about these things. Or these things, they mean so much to us. Now, to Palestinians within the party, I understand. Because that's family, that's friends over there.
Yes.
That's their issue. That's their life. That's their family's legacy. All of that. I get it. And I think for Black folks, we have to push the reparations issue. We have to push that. Right? And every group has to figure out, okay, this might be the big issue for us, but then after that big issue, we still can come together on the smaller issues. And I'm in total agreement with that. Sister Noemi Lawan Perez, I appreciate you so much. Thank you so much. She's a political strategist. She's president of Eco Diversity, a communications firm that provides opportunities for us to hear from different voices from the Black and Latino community. Fantastic work that she's doing here in the city of Los Angeles and around the state. So, Sister Noemi, we thank you so much. And of course, we'll bring you back on as we see how this today's Super Tuesday's votes come out and moving forward over these next couple of months. But thank you so much for being so good for the culture.
Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us. Stay tuned. Up next at 6 p.m. Eastern Time is Big Brother Roland Martin continuing the conversations and, more importantly, the coverage around Super Tuesday and all of these elections that are happening in states across the country. Make sure y'all stay tuned for that. You know the discussions are going to be off the chain, and it's going to be highly informative, and so much that's going to have to be unpacked as we're looking at about 5 o'clock. A lot of polls are still open. So again, if you haven't had a chance to vote today, be sure that you do. Make your voice heard, make your voice known, get your vote in, and definitely get your vote counted. But as you heard from today's conversations with Sister Louimi, Sister Elizabeth, none of this stuff gonna happen if we just sit on the sidelines. Civic participation requires some activism. It requires us to get involved. And that's what we hope that we can inspire folks to do today and just over the next few months, becoming more and more informed and knowledgeable about this process and all of the changing dynamics that are on the political landscape right now. So, definitely go out to vote. Now, also, we invite you to join us and continue to support us here at Black Star Network. Go to our website today, folks. If you enjoyed the content, the conversations that we've been having, make sure you go to our website today at blackstarnetwork.com. Download the app for free. Follow us on social media at Black Star Network. And we thank you so much for all of those who've already donated to us. but we ask for your donations to being investors and stakeholders in this process. So you can go to our website today at blackstarnetwork.com. That's going to do it for me. I thank each and every one of you. As always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong, stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. God willing, we'll talk tomorrow for another exciting edition of The Culture right here, only here, exclusively here on the Black Star Network. Talk to you soon. Peace.